Language learning is a social skill, right? There are some people online in the language learning community that always emphasize speaking. You need to be speaking from day one, you need to be talking to strangers all the time, you need to be talking with language exchange partners all the time, otherwise you will not improve. And for me, as an introverted person that wants to minimize social interaction in general, I absolutely hate hearing that, and I am here to tell you that that is not necessary to learn a language. Of course, it is impossible to speak a language without speaking to people, but there is a way that we can do that within the comfort zone of shy or introverted people. In general, it is impossible to completely cut out speaking, but I think speaking is something we can save for moments where we are more comfortable. But still, that discomfort will always be there, and we need to be aware of that. You cannot always keep running away from discomfort because you will never improve your speaking skill if you do not put yourself in some uncomfortable situation. I've been really feeling that recently since I've been really doing the theoretical alone work for a long time for a lot of my languages, but now I'm finally starting to push myself to speak some of those, and I realize how neglected those skills are for me. I'm not here to tell you that you can learn a language without speaking. I am simply giving some tips of how you can improve your language while you are a shy or introverted person. Speaking can be really scary, but the other skills are something that do feed into speaking. Reading more, writing more, listening more can help your overall language ability and passively improve your speaking. Again, you're not going to become a master by only reading, writing, and listening, but you can prepare yourself for quite a few uncomfortable situations, make those uncomfortable situations more comfortable by getting a lot of vocab from reading, by creating sentences in your writing, by listening to how people actually speak with listening practice. In general, I'm someone who doesn't want to embarrass myself on day one by just saying, hello, my name is, I am X years old, I live in this city. I want to talk to people once I can have a semi-interesting conversation with them. So I practice this by doing a lot of writing, a lot of reading, and listening is so key for me. I remember back in the day of high school French, I was really good in French class. I did very well. I got great scores on all of the tests, but my listening was extremely lacking because my only practice had been with my high school teacher. So ever since then, I've been really prioritizing listening skills. You cannot really have a conversation if you can't understand who you're speaking to. So listening is something really key to have a conversation. You can speak and present all you want, but that's not a conversation. So for me, personally, I really try to improve those other skills before my first conversation. In the case of Turkish, I had been doing these lonely skills for quite a few years, and when I started having regular italki lessons, I felt totally uncomfortable, totally lost, but I still had all the knowledge. In fact, in my most recent Turkish lesson, I asked my tutor what is my weak spot, and they said my weak spot was confidence. I really have the grammar capabilities, I have the knowledge about everything we're talking about. It's just psyching myself out. When I misunderstand a word or don't understand a sentence, I just completely shut down. So you can take this story in two ways. You can see that I've been neglecting speaking for so long, and because of that, speaking is really difficult to me nowadays, and confidence is something I need to build. But you can also see it that I don't need to worry that much about grammar and vocab or sentence structure because I've already been working on that for a long time. For me, as an introverted person, I want to make the most of every moment of speaking that language, so I want to focus on speaking while I'm there. I don't want to worry so much about vocab, about grammar. I just want to have the conversation and get my brain thinking in that direction. Improving those other skills before I go to speaking and I can isolate that variable is how I do it as a more introverted person. Something else I can recommend if you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of another person is to speak to yourself. There is no one to judge you if you speak to yourself, and it is a great way to get your brain working, to get those pathways forged in your brain so that when you do have that conversation, you're not a baby. You can speak to yourself in the car.
tanzen durch mehr.
Bei dir kann ich sein, verträumt und verrückt sein. Na, 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 na.
Ich gehe 18. Warum gehst du runter? Runter? Rund? No, fahren.
You can speak to yourself when you're just relaxing, but I highly recommend that for someone who's really scared to talk to someone. Because the most scary thing when you talk to someone is your mind goes blank, you can't remember anything. But you can have a blank moment when you're talking to yourself because there's no other person to judge you. I talk to myself quite a lot during the day, and it is really helpful for my pronunciation. I'm not worried about 10 things at the same time. Speaking can be really overwhelming because you're thinking about a million things at the same time. Your grammar structure, you're thinking about vocab, you're thinking about intonation, pronunciation. So if you're doing it at a very slow pace, you can repeat yourself a million times. That is some way that you can isolate one variable, pronunciation for example, or forming a sentence. And this is all in a place where you don't feel like someone's judging you, which is usually what stops people from speaking the language they're learning. Narrating your day could be a great way to see which words you are missing and to make those connections in your mind. Also, within this point, I recommend you record yourself speaking so you can see your difference with time. I did this exercise a few months ago with my Turkish, where I started speaking to the camera after a very, very long Turkish break. You can see a lot more fluency after 30 days. And that's from speaking to myself in front of a camera. Something else, if you're a bit introverted, a little scared of speaking, is to go into the realm of text chats. Language exchange, interacting with natives online, are great ways to practice that language without having that uncomfortable moment of being put on the spot and you need to respond quickly in your target language. I say this is pretty important for the people who are avoiding speaking, because if you're avoiding speaking, you are going to end up sounding not so natural, because by definition, you are not speaking with people, you are not speaking how people speak. But if you supplement that with some language exchange or interacting with people on social media, you can make your language sound a little bit more natural because you'll be picking up these things people are saying online. And this is without one of the scariest things about speaking, being put on the spot. I did a lot of language exchange with Korean a few years ago. I cannot speak as fluidly as I would like, but I'm able to really understand what daily conversation is, what people's normal sentences sound like as opposed to what those textbooks have been telling me. And that's because I put in these hours to chat with a lot of people, to text with a lot of people. That is something you could do if you're a bit introverted as well. Something else that I think is really, really key is finding someone that you feel comfortable with speaking. I think it's totally unreasonable to expect everybody to act like those videos where someone goes to an ethnic part of their city and talks with the people there. That is so incredibly uncomfortable for me to just talk with random strangers. I don't even talk with strangers in English. How am I going to talk with strangers in Spanish? So I think it's really important to find someone you feel safe with. After you have developed your speaking skills with someone you feel safe with, then you can move on to someone else. The goal here is to get some value out of speaking while not becoming too uncomfortable and doing things that you don't want to do. Language learning should not be torture and doing things that you absolutely hate, because you're going to fall off eventually if you do that. These are all great ways to improve your language, but at the end of the day, you cannot avoid speaking. Yes, you can minimize the time necessary to practice speaking and you will improve, but you cannot cut it out completely. I've said that multiple times already. I'm saying this because I really reject the style of language learning that just forces you to speak and speak and speak. The style of language learning where you're speaking with people really quickly, you're going to cultural events after one chapter of your textbook, that really doesn't appeal to me, because I don't think you get enough value out of speaking to people as you would have if you waited a little more. That's the key point to say here. I really think speaking as a absolute beginner is a waste of everybody's time. So the native speaker is going to act very differently if you're an absolute beginner, and you are not going to be able to take every possible grammar structure and vocab from what they're saying because it's just so overwhelming when you're an absolute beginner. But I think once you get to that intermediate level, it really is time to talk. talk, and you can really get some value out of that conversation. So my main point of this video is not you should avoid talking, but I think you can leave speaking for a point where you can get more value from it. I don't think it's worth it to embarrass yourself in front of a native speaker after you've done one chapter of your textbook. It could just be me, but that just does not seem appealing. So what do you folks think in the comments? Do you like speaking from day one? Do you wait a little for speaking? Are you someone who just doesn't speak at all? What are your relationships with the speaking skill when learning a language? Although I make YouTube videos about learning languages and I show my skill level quite often, I'm not such a social butterfly looking for events to speak languages with people because I don't know, it's just uncomfortable for me so much. I really like to save speaking for when I can get value out of it. Let me know in the comments below. If you've liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more from me. I'll also have my socials linked in the description below. I also have a website at studywithalex.com if you want to read more about language learning, but that will be all for today's video, and I will see you all for a new video very soon, alright? Tschüss!